history repeats itself, in more ways than one, by Friendly the Flower. Chapter 10. Determined to Overcome. Flowey's uncanny face contorted into a terrifying laughter, echoing throughout the entire void. Then he began sending a wide variety of attacks at Clover. He summoned hands that shot out white pellets everywhere, as well as horrifying-looking vines popping up from below. He also summoned Venus flytraps that shot magic orbs from their mouths, which Clover had to avoid. He shot Flowey in the head several times, but it didn't seem to have any effect. Two large vines suddenly grabbed Clover's soul and flipped it upside down. A different but equally terrifying Flowey face appeared in front of Clover, with 6 different textured petals spinning around. Clover shot a bullet from his soul, which hit one of the petals and made it disappear. Then Clover's vision began to go white as he heard Flowey's manic laughter echo in his head. Then Clover looked up and saw a large Flowey-like creature that seemed to be made of yarn and had buttons for eyes, with 2 red flowers next to his head. It also had strange claw-like hands that dropped red buttons down, which Clover had to avoid. There were also these same hands appearing from afar to shoot nails at Clover. Not wanting to waste any time, Clover quickly shot as many yellow bullets as he could at the red flowers. Once he destroyed one of them, he moved on to destroy the other one, while taking some damage in doing so. When both red flowers were gone, Clover's vision went white again, before he was transported back to where Flowey was, still retaining his sadistic smile as he continued his relentless attacks. Flowey summoned the large bomb that shot a beam out in 4 directions as it exploded, which Clover could fortunately dodge thanks to the marks on the bomb itself. Then Clover saw what looked like 2 little cowboys riding on horses running by him. One of them was suddenly shot. Was suddenly shot, which sprayed 4 bullets that caught Clover by surprise. He continued dodging Flowey's attacks before Clover's soul was grabbed again, and the Flowey with the different petals showed up again. Clover shot one of the petals again, causing it to fall off and disappear before his vision went white. Clover looked up to see a rather grotesque sight. He saw another Flowey that looked to be made completely of organs that seemed to be stitched together. There were several red blood cells spread about that Clover had to shoot down and dodge, as well as what seemed like a purple virus cell that chased him around. He furiously shot at the large red thing that shielded the organic flower before it finally fell off. Clover concentrated all his fire onto it before it was finally destroyed. His vision went white before facing the real Flowey once again. Clover had no other choice but to keep shooting down these 4 remaining petals until they were gone. He found himself faced against a mechanical Flowey equipped with turrets and buzzsaws, and then a Flowey made out of paper that threw various paper scraps at him. Then a strange amalgamation of Flowey that seemed to be made out of clay. The last one he faced was the most terrifying, a polygonal Flowey that shot several spikes, as well as smaller Floweys that slowly crawled down towards him. Trying to push his fear aside, Clover shot everything he had at the flower's 2 red petals before they finally fell off. Then the entire environment around him turned a deep shade of red as the polygonal flower's face contorted into a wide, terrifying grin as it continued its onslaught. Clover powered through though, finally shooting enough times to put an end to it. Once Clover was transported back to Flowey again, he laughed maniacally as he stared down at him.
Don't think you've won, pal. We're only just getting started.
Flowey sent a long barrage of his usual attacks at Clover, trying to deplete his health for good, but hints of frustration began to grow inside him as he kept dodging his attacks. Flowey grabbed Clover's soul with 2 vines before Clover faced himself with the other Flowey again. With just his head remaining and no petals, seeing the manic smile that Flower had only fueled Clover's rage as he charged a big shot and fired it straight at the flower's head. As it was destroyed, Clover's vision began to go white once again. The first thing Clover noticed was total silence. He slowly opened his eyes and looked up to see Flowey. Except his face was completely gone, and replaced with a gaping black hole leaking a dark fluid. Attached to the giant flower head were hundreds of other small dead flowers, all of them having a gaping hole in their head like the large one. He heard strange whispers and voices coming from the smaller ones, similar to the ones he heard earlier. Then many of the smaller flowers suddenly started shooting white pellets from the gaping holes in their heads. At Clover, he began swiftly dodging them all, but they quickly became too much to handle. One of them hit Clover's leg, causing him to stumble and get hit by more pellets. He felt his health draining rapidly as he was forced to the ground and looked up in terror to see the large flower head getting ready to fire its own pellet at Clover to finish him off. The flower shot a massive pellet from the gaping hole on its head directly at Clover. Time seemed to slow to a standstill as Clover pointed his soul at the pellet. His anger began to rise once more as he had just about enough of this flower torturing him like this. His love rose up to 2, then 3, and 4, exponentially increasing as the pellets slowly got closer and closer. Seconds later, Clover's soul reached love 19 before it began charging up something huge. Just when the pellet was about to hit Clover, his soul fired a yellow beam straight at it, destroying the pellet in an instant, as well as mortally wounding the large flower that shot it at him. The massive flower slumped down as it collapsed. Clover saw this opportunity and ran towards it, avoiding the pellets that the other flowers shot at. Jumping upwards, Clover climbed into the large hole in the flower's face. As expected, there was nothing but darkness inside. However, Clover stood up and began walking forward, his shoes making small splashes on the black fluid beneath him. It wasn't long before Clover finally spotted something, a colorless golden flower with Flowey's signature smile. Though there was a yellow glow surrounding him, it didn't move a single inch in response to Clover walking towards it. His mind raced with thoughts of Flowey. This one flower had taken so much from him, so much from everyone. He took Kaneko away from him. Clover let his sadness fuel his rage as he charged toward the motionless Flowey, not even bothering to shoot it with his gun. He quickly kneeled down in front of it and began tearing the flower to shreds with his bare hands, ripping its petals off one by one. Loves me not. Loves me not. The Clover screamed as he ripped the flower's head off from its stem before grabbing it and tearing his entire face in half. Once Clover stood up and stomped on the dead flower, his vision began to go white again. Clover found himself back in front of Flowey, who now stared down at him with a rather annoyed smile.
Welcome back, Clover. You're quite the persistent one, aren't you? Well, it's been real fun, but you've grown to bore me way quicker than I expected. So the only thing left to do now is take your soul.
Flowey surrounded Clover's soul with white pellets before they all began closing in on him. He focused on his soul before suddenly dashing through the pellets, coming out unscathed. Before Flowey could react, Clover charged up his soul again and fired another yellow beam at Flowey's head. The beam did major damage to him, leaving a massive hole in his forehead. Flowey looked at Clover in disbelief.
What? You? How can you hurt me here? That's... Oh. Impossible!
Clover took a deep breath as he glared up at Flowey with gritted teeth.
This ends now!
You...
Flowey didn't understand how Clover could do this. He was so weak before, but now he was way stronger than he expected. But then a strange feeling made its way into Flowey's mind. He knows for a fact that it's just him and Clover together in his own head. But there was this nagging feeling that someone else was here in his head as well, somehow influencing Clover. Almost as if this was just meant to happen. Brushing the feeling aside though, Flowey glared down at Clover before. File loaded. Flowey had a wide sadistic grin on his face as he loaded his save file, restoring any damage he had taken. Then he wasted no time in sprouting some vines from the ground to hold Clover's arms and body in place.
You idiot! Did you really think you stood a sliver of a chance against me? That once you defeat me against all odds, you'll get our little happy ending. I'll admit, you put up a good fight like I wanted. Almost too good of a fight. But that doesn't matter. I'll still break what pathetic resistance you have and take your soul for myself. But how about some fun first? You know, even if I hated that little fox for straying you away from your path, I was still nice enough to make her satisfying death quick and painless. But now that you've really pissed me off, I think I'll load my save again. And before I take your soul, I'll force you to watch as I kill her over and over again. Nice and slow.
Once he processed everything he just heard, Clover snapped. He screamed as his yellow soul let out a powerful shockwave, freeing him from the vines. File overwritten. Fly couldn't believe what he was seeing.
What the? Well, I'll just...
Load failed.
What?
Before Fly could even process that his load had somehow failed, he saw Clover charging at him at full speed. He jumped towards his head, reeling his fist back as Clover's yellow soul channeled its power into his arm.
Damn typo. Alright. I've had enough of you!
Clover yelled before he punched Fly directly in the face, the power from his soul leaving a massive gaping hole in his head. Determined more than ever to get out, Clover's soul went through the hole as his vision went black. Back on the rooftop, Clover's soul suddenly shot out of Flowey's body and immediately made its way back into Clover's body. Clover slowly opened his eyes and stood up before facing Flowey, who looked rather dazed. Shaking his head, Flowey glared at Clover in both pure rage and disbelief.
You! How did you? No!
Flowey yelled before sprouting up a vine from the ground to stab Clover in an attempt to take his soul again. But Clover dashed it aside before grabbing the vine with one hand and shooting it with the other. Fly screamed in pain as he retracted his vine.
Why?
Load failed 3 times. Flowey desperately tried to load his save file to no avail. His shocked frown slowly curled into a manic smile before he burst into laughter.
I hate you! I've always hated you. Every moment spent with you is more insufferable than the last. You really think that killing me will fix everything? Well, it won't bring her back. Have fun explaining everything to the others. I'm sure they'll believe you didn't kill her in cold blood.
As Flowey laughed maniacally, Clover charged at him, grabbing his stem, using his other hand to rip his head clean off before tearing it to shreds. He screamed and cried as he ripped Flowey's head and petals into tiny little pieces. It was soon before his rage simmered down and Clover knelt in front of the now dead flower in front of him. He finally killed the one tormenting him all this time, the one that murdered Kaneko in front of him, but she was still gone. There was no way he can explain this to the others. As Clover wiped his tears, an idea came into his mind. If he was correct, Clover has control over the timeline now. If he loads his save file, he'll be back to the point just before he follows Kaneko onto the roof. But what would he do then? It'll be likely that he'll lose control of the timeline if he does load. So even if it does end up saving Kaneko, Flyway would just load and try again. Clover closed his eyes, trying to think of any solution. He turned around and saw a bright yellow save point behind him and touched it. After it healed his injuries, Clover looked at the text box in front of him. Clover level 20 at Hotland. Clover was always level 1 until. That must be why he finally overpowered Flyway's control of the timeline. Being at level 20 caused his determination to be greater than his. Then Clover's eyes widened as he realized something. He reached into his satchel and pulled out the determination syringe that Marla gave him. This was it, Clover thought. But then Clover realized he couldn't inject this into himself. Overpowering Flyway's determination wasn't enough. He had to save Kaneko as well, so then maybe Kaneko should be the one to take this syringe. And if it's true that this makes monsters much stronger, then that should mean it'll make it so Kaneko has more determination than Flyway as well. But at the same time, he couldn't just ask her, "Oh, hey Kaneko, can you inject this syringe into yourself so you won't die against this flower that's gonna kill you?" Especially with her track record involving syringes. No, he had to give her this at the right moment. It would be a gamble, though, however, but Clover saw no other option. He led out alongside his steel himself as he glared at the text box in front of him before putting his hand on the load button. File loaded. Clover startled as he found himself back in the lobby of UG Apartments building. His mind was all fuzzy for a second before it all came back to him. Kaneko getting killed, despite with Flowey gaining the ability to save. And now he came back with a new mission, to get rid of Flowey for good and save Kaneko at the same time. And this one's Kaneko.
Yeah, I was trying to find the unmute button.
Oh.
Clover, are you coming?
Kaneko asked from behind him. Clover jumped as he looked back at Kaneko with wide eyes. He expected to see her again, but seeing the real Kaneko alive and standing right in front of him as if she never died at all. It was very jarring for Clover still. Kaneko nervously smiled in concern with Clover not responding.
Are you alright, Clover? You look like you've seen a ghost. There's Napster block here.
Sorry, sorry, Kaneko.
We can barely
yeah,
hear
I'm
you.
coming. Wait, you can't hear me?
We can barely hear you. You're very quiet.
Yeah, we can barely hear you.
How about now?
Better.
Much better.
Alright, good. Alright, I'll start my line again. Sorry, Kaneko. Yeah, I'm coming.
Oh. Clover responded, holding back tears as he followed her out. Clover was trembling as he followed Kaneko to the roof, checking his pocket multiple times to make sure the syringe was there and ready to use. It could be the key to finally killing Flowey for good. As the two of them made it to the roof, Kaneko stared up at the giant metal structure before her. It was the first time she had seen the core up this close, but a nagging feeling in her mind told her that she had seen this exact same sight before. As impossible as this was, brushing that aside though, Kaneko turned around to face Clover.
Clover, there's something I need to talk about with you. About your mission.
Clover's breast became heavier, not ready to bear the sight of seeing Kaneko get impaled by Flowey's vine again, but he had to. It was the only way.
I know, Kaneko. You want me to stay with you in the dunes, and I accept.
You do? Wait, how did you know I was gonna ask you that?
Kaneko asked with a curious look.
Well, you see, Kaneko,
Before Clover could continue, a green vine suddenly popped out of the ground and stabbed Kaneko right through her chest. She froze in place as her eyes widened in fear, and almost felt as if this happened to her before.
Clover? What?
Clover wasted no time as he charged towards Kaneko, holding the syringe and stabbed into her arm, injecting her with the DT serum. Still in shock, Kaneko looked at the syringe then back at Clover.
Clover, what did you do?
Then Kaneko felt a sharp pain in her soul as the vine that impaled her was quickly retracted. She fell to her knees as the hole in her chest was quickly filled and healed up. But then her hair started growing much longer, the end of her hair fading into a dark pink. Finally, her eyes began glowing a bright yellow as her kimono grew a large cape behind her, where the inside of it looked like the outer space itself. Foul overwritten. Flowey popped out of the ground near them in pure disbelief at what he was seeing.
You. What did you do?
Kaneko looked up at Clover, feeling both weird but empowered at the same time.
Clover, what happened to me?
No! How did you remember?
Flowey yelled in anger as he sent another vine directly at Kaneko, but Clover grabbed the vine just in time and shot it as he answered Kaneko.
I can't speak for some reason. Alright, listen, Kaneko. We have to kill this flower. Now. I'll explain everything later.
Flowey looked pissed off as he glared at Clover.
I don't think so.
Load failed.
What the? Why isn't this working?
Flowey said before trying to load again. Load failed. Then Flowey looked up to see a pink fireball headed straight at him. He ducked under it just in time, but one of Clover's bullets managed to pierce a hole through his petal. As Kaneko felt the determination flow through her, she began to remember things that never happened to her. Memories of that same flower stabbing her in the back, forcing Clover to watch as she faded to dust. She had no idea who this flower was or what it wanted, but given that Clover knew and told her it had to die, she had no choice but to do just that. Flowey popped back out of the ground as he desperately sent white pellets flying at Clover and Kaneko. Kaneko used her magic berry to deflect them as Clover dashed around them. Seeing no way out of this, Flowey had no choice but to escape. But as he tried to sink back into the ground, his body was suddenly frozen in place by Kaneko's magic before Clover shot another bullet straight through another one of Flowey's petals. As the flower collapsed to the ground, he looked up to see Clover staring down at him with a face he never expected Clover to have. It made him feel something he hasn't felt in a very long time. His whole body began trembling as his face began swaying. He opened his mouth to speak as Clover stepped closer to him.
Clover. Wait. Wait!
Clover quickly raised his leg and stomped on Flowey as hard as he could, hearing his stem snap like a twig as his head was planted into the concrete. Clover raised his leg to see nothing but an ordinary flower, now damaged and crushed beyond saving.
It's finally over.
Clover said, letting out a long sigh. Kaneko put her staff away as she nervously looked down at Clover.
So, who the hell was that guy? And why did he try to kill me?
It's a long story. That was Flowey. He was one of the first monsters I met when I fell into the underground. He offered to assist me again to Asgore by saving and reviving me if I died at any time. I thought he was my friend, but it turned out he was just using me to defeat Asgore and take the 5 souls for himself, along with mine. And Flowey actually killed you before. And then he killed me to try and absorb my soul. But I fought back against him, and I defeated him by overpowering his determination, taking the save and loading ability he had for myself. Still, you were dead, and there's no way I could bring you back except for loading my save file. So I did just that, but this time I managed to give you that DT serum that Marley gave me so your determination can overpower Flowey's. So we both could kill him for good.
Kaneko slowly processed everything Clover said.
I see. So that syringe you gave me, it made me powerful by giving me enough of this determination to overpower that Flowey person? I suppose it worked though. I don't really know how to use this power, and we are taking this surprisingly well.
Well, you use it from these bright yellow stars you can find scattered about. Just touch those and you'll be able to save and load as you please. At least that's how I did it.
Alright, I remember that. And I notice I now look a bit different. What's that all about?
Oh, shoot. Where's it? Oh no, where is this? Oh god, I'm lost. Shoot.
It's at... Alright, I'll take note of that.
How is Kaneko not freaking out over this?
Kaneko said, taking in her new look, her eyes widening in surprise as she noticed her space cape. Clover took in her new look as well, his mouth curling into a nervous smile as she looked twice as pretty as she did before.
Well, yeah, you look really nice. Your little space cake looks sick, by the way.
Kaneko smirked as she held the cape up with her arm.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I really like this. Thanks for the glow up, Clover.
She said, winking at him. Clover's face blushed a bit as he responded.
Yeah, no problem. I had to save your life somehow.
Then Kaneko walked over to Clover and hugged him tightly while smiling.
No, but really, thanks for everything, Clover. I guess that's the second time you saved my life, huh? I'm just glad it's over now and you can finally come live with us. Mom's always wanted another kid.
Clover sniffled as he hugged her back, smiling in relief.
Believe me, I'm more than happy to stay with y'all. It's everything I've ever wanted, especially with you, Kaneko.
Kaneko began blushing beneath her fur as she slightly backed away from Clover and nervously smiled at her. Heart pounded in her chest. Could she really say this now? What if he didn't feel the same way? But after everything they'd been through, after almost losing him, she just couldn't keep it inside anymore.
Clover, I think now is a better time as ever to be honest with you, with my feelings. You see, ever since I met you yesterday, I've always felt this growing attachment to you that I couldn't ignore, always since yesterday. And when I thought I'd never get to see you again, I tried pushing that thought away, but when I finally got to see you again and you told me all those nice things you said earlier that I can't remember because it was multiple weeks ago, I realized that the connection we have is special. Like, you're the perfect friend for me to have around and spend time with.
Then Kaneko looked down, her face blushing a bit more.
Well, I guess I should admit that friend isn't really the right word. My point is, Clover, I think I want you to be my big brother, Clover.
What?
It's alright, I say I'm also tired, it's late.
Okay, yeah. Kaneko said, looking up at Clover with a teary smile, her arms crossed behind her back. Clover took a good 5 seconds to process that last thing Kaneko just said before his face transformed into a red tomato, lowering his hat a bit to hide his intensely flushed face.
I had no idea you felt that way for me, Kaneko. And I'll admit, you're amazing too, but you're really smart and kind and really pretty, even more so now. Never felt anything close to this kind of affection before, but I'm more than willing to accept those feelings from you.
Now Kaneko was the one to be a blushing mess.
You really feel the same way? Oh.
Kaneko cried out as she hugged Clover again.
Yeah, what do you mean? We haven't got that yet.
Oh.
I got distracted because Spy was messaging me.
Oh.
You really feel the same way? You have no idea how happy I am to hear that, Clover.
Kaneko cried out as she hugged Clover again.
I love you, big bro.
Stop making this weird.
A tear left Clover's eye as he smiled widely, overjoyed that he was finally free from Flowey's grip, and scored a pretty fox girl afterward.
I love you too, Kaneko. More than I ever thought I could love anyone.
The two of them slowly separated before looking into each other's eyes. Gathering her courage, Kaneko was the one to make the first move and slowly leaned in. Clover blushed harder as he realized what Kaneko wanted, but he equally wanted this as well. The two of them shared a long, heartfelt kiss as they hugged each other closer on the rooftop. Both of them knowing what they finally got themselves into. No, both of them knowing that they finally got the happy ending they strived for all this time. Before they could take things any further, though, they heard something drop on the floor near them. The two of them pulled back and looked over to see none other than Soroba staring at them wide-eyed. Her staff dropped on the floor next to her. Kanako suddenly reeled back as she noticed just who was watching.
Wait, more?
Instead of responding to her daughter like a normal person would, Soroba proceeded to faint on the spot. Wow,
Man,
what a way to end that.
Soroka just first she's like, "Oh, thank God, I won't take you out of my sight," and then immediately is like, "Clover, can you keep an eye on her?" And now
You have
this.
two choices, Kanako. Live with the future you've got, or start over.
Yeah, I think I'll reset. Thanks.
Okay, I'll stop recording.